What's up everyone, welcome to today's video, welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today's video is going to be a little longer. I want it to be more of a very nuanced video, as much as I can anyways. So kick back, relax, and bear with me, and thank you so much for your time. And we're going to be jumping right into this. So I've titled my video, Rocksteady Needs to Return to Arkham. It's a play on words. For those of you who remember, there was a Return to Arkham series that actually was released as a video game package. But the reason I'm actually bringing up this particular topic is because it has an economic intensity to it, because one thing about these video games is they have a commercial aspect, and if we do not look at this side of things, we'll probably be much more disappointed, or if things do not change, we won't necessarily have any kind of outlook towards the company. So let's go ahead and look at, say, Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights, out of nowhere, was getting all of these so-called silent treatments to its community, its audience, and its marketing, and then out of nowhere, pop, we get a release date. Then out of nowhere, pop, we get a gameplay reveal. Then out of nowhere, we get pop, oh, they're not going to be releasing the game on the last gen. It just seemed like things were basically being dropped in a way that did not feel organic or planned. Now, I don't know who may have noticed this, but here are my own thoughts. These are opinions and theories or hypotheses that may be the reason for why we're seeing some of these things happen. So first of all, let's look at why Gotham Knights, or why I think Gotham Knights is not receiving its current or past gen version. That's the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox. So first of all, I'm going to cite Digital Foundry. They talked about the Gotham Knights gameplay that was just newly shown, and that was something that everybody kind of, had their mixed feelings on. But something was very important in the Digital Foundry's assessment. The folk over there said they thought that the game, from what they saw, was a game that they basically assessed could play on the base PlayStation and base Xbox consoles without any problem. But in regard to, say, the multiplayer, the co-op side, they thought that was probably the major reason the game got canceled for the past generation. In my opinion, I think the new management that's been in this whole merger case with Discovery and Warner Media Entertainment, I think they came in and looked at the project and said, we got to go out there and cut our losses and move on, because that was a very significant aspect of the install base. As much as you could say we now have more of the next gen or current gen consoles available, that's the Xbox Series and PlayStation, there's still literally somewhere around maybe 20% of the already existing consoles that are out there. I mean, PlayStation consoles or PlayStation 4 consoles literally reached about 100 million in sales. Right now, there are only 17.3 or so million PlayStation 5s. That's literally not even 20% of the potential install base. Why would they make that decision, even though financially it could hurt them? I think they probably looked at the books and said, this game and this studio have been working on projects and nothing has been released in the past. How many years? About 9 years or so? And so they went ahead and made the decision to say, get this product out there. And then from then on, there's probably going to be other possible implications that will be seen. Add this to the rumors that there's potentially the shopping around of the Warner Brothers Media and Interactive Entertainment arms or divisions. That's basically the gaming studios out there for someone who wants to probably buy them. It doesn't necessarily seem too far for me. And so here comes in with Rocksteady. I believe strongly that whenever you have these economic factors that are pressing, because nobody really saw them, things were good, right? And then we had this huge medical issue that affected the whole world. And I think before that, everybody was playing games. But now it's time for everybody to tighten up, because it seems like the new management is in here to tighten things down and put aside all of the poor mismanagement that, what I believe, in my opinion, has been the theme of a lot of the Warner Brothers properties. I mean, if we give another example, let's just say this example of the more recent time. The former Warner Media executive that just recently left has been on Twitter defending his actions for bringing out CNN Plus. For those of you who don't know, the person that was in charge of CNN Plus has also been in charge of the Suicide Squad game, the Hogwarts Legacy game, and the Gotham Knights game, believe it or not. And this person decided that spending $350 million on CNN as a subscription service was the best direction to go. Can you imagine the asinine decision making, or can you imagine sitting in the board meeting and your boss is saying, let's spend $350 million so that we can take a news network that produces nothing and give them a subscription service, when you have video games in development that have been sitting in development for multiple years. Some have been canceled. You have game developers that are moving all over the place in a position where all they need is just a better pay, better work environment, and you abandoned all of that, which they're producing a product, actually a digital product, and you go with a subscription service for a news agency that all of its trust is quite subjective. And so you see the kind of mismanagement that I'm basically pointing towards. I'll also throw in another example for you guys, just in case you think I might be overreacting. If you've been paying attention to the Warner Cinematic side of the news and a lot of the conversations, you also have heard about the Snyder Cut debacle. For the longest time, a lot of the executives, now I don't know if any of these people had anything to do with the video games or whatever, but whoever the decision makers were already kind of, in a sense, shunned the fans and determined that there was no Snyder Cut and no Snyder Cut was going to be released. Well, come down to a few years and it seemed like their backs were against the wall, they decided that they were going to launch HBO Max. And before they launched HBO Max, somehow a Snyder Cut appeared and was used as the rallying TV show or movie or documentary, whatever you want to call the Snyder Cut, was going to be basically the main thing or the main IP that was used to launch it. Can you imagine having a Snyder Cut that fans, even though they were interested or curious, were always asking about, and then you tell them to dismiss that you did not necessarily feel like you were interested in giving fans something that they actually did want? And to even see where the data went, there was actually a social media campaign for the Snyder Cut, and the analytics were actually publicly revealed, and it showed that the social media campaign had millions and millions of engagement, and a lot of people got to see the Snyder Cut. Even though the Snyder Cut may not necessarily have been some groundbreaking TV show that launched HBO Max, it still was very successful. In fact, I can argue that without the Snyder Cut, HBO Max might have failed. So from a business decision-making side, I don't think it makes any sense. If you even want to add more to all of this, you have to go back and look at, say, even Rocksteady. Now, I get it. Some people are excited for the Suicide Squad game, and I'm over here saying they need to return to Arkham. Believe it or not, the Suicide Squad game, thankfully, is in the Arkham universe. Whew, that would have been really interesting for us to go ahead and say, how are they going to basically cut it? And the truth is, I think that even though Rocksteady has already declared that they want to have nothing else to do with the Arkham games, they probably wanted to continue to build within that universe, but their hands were basically tied behind their back, or they probably had some executive decision that has limited them. And this is in my opinion. I don't necessarily know. And let me give you the reason why I say that. So if you look at Batman Arkham Knight, that was so far the last game that Rocksteady has already developed and published. The game was littered with all kinds of clues of Superman. There are Lex Towers all over the place, or LexCorp businesses and organizations and symbols and signs that are just open out there. The goons on the streets continue to talk about that freak in Metropolis. They didn't necessarily hide their intention to pretty much put clues of Superman in Batman Arkham Knight. But all of a sudden, after so many years of silence, they decide that they're making a Suicide Squad game that's basically going to be a multiplayer game. I think somebody made the executive decision and said to them, no, don't make a single player game, follow a trend for the multiplayer. And they were like, how are we going to chalk this up? And somebody said, well, maybe we can put the Suicide Squad on the forefront, and it might be a good way to have players be more engaging, because it just seems like a much more intriguing concept. But at the end of the day, I think a Superman game would have probably worked, or any other superhero that they wanted to take from the DC catalog. And so this is pretty much what we're seeing right now. If at any point Warner Brothers Entertainment or the new management decide that they're going to take these DC characters and shop them out there like Marvel is doing, then Rocksteady needs to probably play on their best strengths, and it might not necessarily be the time to spend years and years experimenting. The Suicide Squad game, I think, is going to be fine. This is not me saying that it's going to be a bad game. I'm just saying that if they had played to some of their strengths, by now, in all of that time frame, they would have had at least 2 or 3 games already on the store shelves for people to be enjoying, playing, and buying, and that would have been churning out revenue. Right now, these two studios, basically Rocksteady, Warner Brothers Games Montreal, have operated for many years without making any game, whereas other studios like Monolith have been much more consistent, in my opinion anyways. They've been able to bring out 2 Shadow of War or Shadow of Mordor games, however you want to put it, and they're working on a Wonder Woman game, and they seem to be very effective in making their games. Wonder Woman to me seems like a single player methodology is where Monolith is going to be sticking with, and I think they're going to be able to dodge the hatchet if it ever comes down, because it's a proven theory that they're actually working with, a proven methodology that they've already experienced, used to actually be profitable for Warner Brothers, and I think that's basically what it is. So after this co-op fiasco that they're doing with Gotham Knights, which may have been the reason to have removed it from the install base, I strongly believe that Warner Brothers Games Montreal, I also strongly believe that Rocksteady and other Warner Brothers development studios need to return to Arkham. And when I say return to Arkham, I think they need to return to their strengths rather than play on these new and somewhat awkward trends that were very, very large in the last few years, where multiplayer multiplayer seemed to be all in all, but so far is now proving to not necessarily be the way to go. And so these are pretty much my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think that Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment's choices to go with much more multiplayer oriented games have been the best scenario, or have they been the very best business model so far? Do you think that removing these studios from their comfort zone of making single player games have actually been the issue that has caused a lot of time of development, whereby we've seen these games get delayed or at least maybe stay longer than necessary in development? Talk to me in the comment section. I really appreciate you guys so much, and thank you very much for watching the video. Peace out.